Kansas City, the home of the greatest chicken fingers in the land. People think of Kansas City falsely as a barbecue city. That's bullcrap. Kansas City is home of the Ben Maller chicken fingers, and that is what it's known for. It's known for that and the Kansas City Chiefs. So that was the site, Arrowhead Stadium, and AFC West do-si-do as Sean Payton's Broncos playing Andy Reid's Chiefs. A couple of high-profile, highly paid coaches. One of them actually wins. The other one doesn't. So did you watch? Perhaps not. So I had two TVs going. I had the NFL game on the small TV. I had the baseball on the big TV. And then I flipped. At one point, I flipped back because I had Kansas City minus the 10.5, and I thought I was going to get screwed on a backdoor cover. More on that in a minute. Patrick Mahomes, he went over 300 yards passing. He had a touchdown. Harrison Buckner kicked 4 field goals. And the Chiefs able to hold off the Broncos 19-8. They've now won 16 consecutive games over the Denver football team, their AFC West supposed rival. Travis Kelce had 9 catches, 124 yards, much to the delight of Taylor Swift, who was there hanging out. A very weird situation. We're not sure what that's all about, but she was there hanging out at Arrowhead Stadium. No reports on whether she left in a cotton candy cart, a popcorn cart, a pretzel cart, or some kind of a smoked beef cart. We don't know. We do know the Chiefs are now 5-1, and they won this game mostly because of their defense. The Broncos actually got a decent defensive performance, and they lost anyway. So they dropped to 1-5. The better story, though, is in the losing locker room. That's where we're going to start. The question, we'll start with the quarterback. Boy, what a stinker it was for him, for Denver. How are things going for Russell Wilson in a Broncos uniform in year number 2? So I've got Gene Simmons, Mary Jane, and Hamburger Helper. And we're going to lock all of these things together, and we are going to make a banana cream pie, which is the king of the pie. The banana cream pie is at the very top of the pie big board with a wink and a nod to the traditional apple pie, which is pretty good. But anyway, all right, so number one. Russell Wilson is like Penn and Teller or David Copperfield. He's a magic man in Denver because so far this year he had been statistically one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. I work with a guy on the TV show that I do, Benny versus the Penny, who I forget his name. He used to work here. But he loves the quarterback ranking. And so we were in production meetings for the TV show this week, and he's like, well, Russell Wilson's the number 4 ranked quarterback in the NFL. He's behind Brock Purdy, Tua Tagovailoa, and Justin Herbert. And I rolled my eyes, right? I roll my eyes when I hear this nonsense. I roll my eyes. I'm like, listen, I'm just here to do the Benny versus the Penny. I don't want to hear your bullcrap takes, okay? And so statistically speaking, Russell Wilson had been a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, but anyone that's actually watched the Bronco games know that is a magic act. It's smoke and mirrors is what it is. It's deception. It's illusion. It's hocus pocus. On Thursday night, the magic act came to an end. Russell Wilson channeled Gene Simmons from the iconic band Kiss as he was unmasked. He was unmasked by the Kansas City football team, the defense. Wilson was completely overmatched. How bad was it? Russell ended up sucking at a time you cannot suck. He fell into a sinkhole, and we don't know if he made it. Melting under the bright lights at Arrowhead Stadium. Mr. Unlimited had a VIP pass on the Vomit Comet.
Mr. Unlimited.
Yeah, well, he was very limited. Completed just 13 passes, less than 60%, less than 100 yards passing. For an NFL QB to have less than 100 yards passing, holy crap on a cracker. 95 yards.
Limited.
Yeah, well, very limited. 4.3 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, bouncing the ball off receivers' hands. The passer rating was below 50. A good passer rating is in the high 90s or over 100. He was below 50. That's my quarterback. All right, now, page 2 here. We turn to Halloween. Ooh. So that is when the trade deadline is going to be here in the NFL. The Denver Broncos are sending out feelers. They have let their useful idiots in the media know that if you would like a Denver football player, they are available on the discount rack in the Rocky Mountains. So anyway, one of those players is Jeudy. And this guy looks like Adonis, and he plays like a pipsqueak most of the time. So he was the story, the sidebar story for the Thursday night NFL game. Why? Well, entering the chat right now is former NFL star wide receiver Steve Smith, who's now working as a blowhard on television, and he absolutely undressed Jeudy. Steve Smith called him a Tier 3 wide receiver. Speaking on state-sponsored NFL network, Steve Smith, former Carolina Panther legend, and played for the Ravens, he added that the teams who are looking for wide receiver help should not trade for Jeudy because, quote, he's mentally unable to handle constructive criticism, close quote. Now, to reinforce that point, Jeudy did the thing you can't do at the time you can't do it. But people were upset with the take by Steve Smith, the former receiver. So the question on this one, did Steve Smith, ex-NFL player, cross the line in his criticism of Broncos wide receiver Jeudy? And the only answer spanning the globe is no way. Not United Way, no way. That's the only answer. Now, this is a wonderful bit of sports commentary and something we don't get a lot of, right? Give me more. Give me more. And one of the problems we get with athletes that become broadcasters, it's something this famous sportscaster who you don't know who he is anymore because he died a million years ago, this guy named Howard Cosell. When I was a kid, he was an old man. But Howard Cosell complained about jockocracy, the fact that athletes walk off the field sight unseen with no proper training and get broadcasting jobs. And it's only gotten worse. It's only gotten worse over the last couple of generations. And normally what happens is they don't want to mess with the brotherhood, the sanctity of the sport they played in. So what you get is very vanilla, cliches. It's just boring, right? Just boring. There's a few exceptions. Now, the greatest exception is Charles Barkley, who's the gold standard. But so many of these other guys are totally afraid to give these hot takes. And so Steve Smith goes out there, and he just lets it rip. That's a Mary Jane take. You know what a Mary Jane take is? Blunt. That was a blunt take. Call a spade a spade. Now, I agree with Steve Smith. Right? I have no skin in the game on this, but buyer beware. If I'm looking for a wide receiver, I look at Jeudy as highly flammable. Because I'm old enough to remember the 2020 draft when he dominated the combine. He was a prodigy at Alabama. And, man, did he look amazing. Playmaker, big play guy, all the draftniks, all the nerds told me this guy can score anytime he touches the ball. Hands on balls. He's durable. He's a number one receiver. He's the next Odell Beckham. You know what all that was? Bull junk. It was false advertising is what it was. All right, final point. So on the Kansas City side, what is the state of the Chiefs' address after 6 games? I'm glad you asked. So on the Chiefs side, it is a mixed bag. That 5-1 record, while sexy, right? It's not as sexy as the 49ers, not as sexy as the Eagles, but 5-1 is nothing to sneeze at. Kansas City's defense has become badass. They're giving out this vibe. They actually know what they're doing, unlike previous editions. And Andy Reid's put out some pretty bad defensive teams in recent years, even though they've gotten to the Super Bowl and occasionally won it. But this defense looks legit. Too legit to quit. But my takeaway here, on the State of the Chiefs address is Patrick Mahomes. He's in the Goldilocks zone right now. He's the gold standard, but he needs help. He needs the hamburger helper. He needs a helping hand. The Broncos entered Thursday with the NFL's worst defense. They gave up over 700 yards in a single game to the Miami Dolphins. Over 700 yards in a single game. In addition, that same game, they gave up, 70 points in that game. It was a historical defensive meltdown for the Denver Broncos. And as a result of that and some other horrific performances, which included allowing Justin Fields to look like he was back at The Ohio State University for much of that game, the Kansas City Chiefs, the reigning Super Bowl champions from Kansas City, went out, and how did they do? Well, let's see here. All right, Denver last in yards per game allowed. Yeah, last in points per game allowed. And let's see. I'll do my computer-like math tells me that the Broncos defense, in comparison, hornswoggled the Kansas City football team, which is a bad sign. Now, the Chiefs had 389 yards of offense. Keep in mind, though, that's still over 60 yards worse than the average Bronco opponent gets. What about the points per game? So 19 points. That's it. 19 points for Kansas City. That's all. And that is 17 points less than the average opponent gets against the Broncos. So Kansas City, they were able to move the ball. But here's the thing. You watch the Chiefs. They don't have the afterburners. They cannot go full throttle. Cannot do it. Travis Kelce, who's 34 years old, had 8 catches. He went over 120 yards. And everyone else, it was pretty much bupkis among the wide receivers. So I have activated the Maller think tank. If you've got a problem, you have to come up with a solution. And I had an epiphany. I want to run this by you. Okay? The trade deadline's on Halloween. I've got the perfect elixir for the Kansas City Chiefs offense. Their wide receivers blow. They need help. This is the time. These are the greatest years of Mahomes' career. Don't waste them. Do not waste them. And there's people saying, well, what about McCole Hardman? They can get him back from the Jets. That's a Trump move. That is a Trump move. Here's what you do. All right? Nobody else has this, by the way. Kansas City picks up the phone. They send a text over to the Rams, right? Send a text over to the Rams. 2 words. Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp. What's it going to take to poach Cooper Kupp? Make a Godfather offer. And since the Rams got a wide receiver that fell out of heaven, Puka Nacua, who's pretty cheap and also pretty good, who plays a similar style, not as good as Cooper Kupp, but he's a poor man's Cooper Kupp. If you're the Rams and you're a middling team, would you make that move? Of course you would, and here's why. Because Kansas City has the ability to make the Godfather offer. Nobody turns down the Godfather offer. It's an offer you cannot refuse. Thus, the Godfather offer. So who cares if you have to trade a first-round pick and 2 second-round picks? I would even trade 2 first-round picks for Cooper Kupp. He's that good. You put him with Mahomes, and you still have, obviously, Kelce. Man, do everything you can to fortify the stockpile of talent while Mahomes is in the prime of his career. And you can rack up Super Bowls and chase Tom Brady and the Patriots. But you got to make the move. You got to be aggressive. Who says no? Nobody can say no to this. That's a great trade for Kansas City. Now, for the Rams, probably not. But your Chiefs, got to do it.